Racist Idiot.
Yo, dudes, welcome back to Racist Idiot. If you bought more cars than you have pairs of windshield wipers in your vehicle owning career, you're probably a racist. Join in with all the racist shenanigans we got going on. And I'm going to have a bold topic today. And it's going to be how Honda kids are the purest car people on the roads today, right? Pretty crazy. But when you see this Honda kid blasting by you going, bah, with this freaking fart can ricer muffler that we always used to make fun of back in the day, it is like the same kid that I went to high school with back in the 90s. It's pretty impressive how accurate. I mean, they're taking care of these cars that are older than they are. They're basically doing all the same stuff that they were doing as far as hot rodding and things like that, using vintage parts that they can find because that's pretty much what's available to them as far as a lot of the aftermarket body kits and stuff go. And they're just doing the damn thing, but just with dumber haircuts, you know? I mean, the modern haircuts are pretty bad, but that's what every generation says about the haircuts of the youth and the music, you know? We're all just a bunch of old dudes yelling at clouds anyway. But this was one of the realizations I've had because I've, seen these kids running around in traffic. Baby Tyga absolutely has to come and say hi when we're recording. Yeah, they're bombing around in traffic in these old Civics. And I was actually at the parts store the other day, and the local parts counter kid is actually my coworker that I talked about in the last Smogcast, son. You know, I roll up in there, he recognizes me but doesn't know where I'm from because, you know, we don't see each other all the time, but he looks like his dad, and I recognize him right away. I was like, damn, bro, like, this isn't working out well for you, man. But he's actually a good car guy, and I could break his chops, and he was able to take it. And he was actually really, really knowledgeable and informative for a parts store kid. Like, really, really rare. Most parts store employees I deal with, there's like the old lady at the one that's, you know, by my shop that every time I ask her for something for my Corvette, she's like, is it the 5.7 liters? Like, this is a 1 out of 1 choice. You should not even ask me this question. Move on with your life. But he actually helped me get the correct fitting that I needed to install my oil catch can. Really, really cool kid. Helped me out with a bunch of stuff. And then another Honda kid rolled up in the parking lot with this super cherry looking Integra that he scored for a pretty good deal that had the cleanest interior for a 96 Integra I've seen since probably about 97. Absolutely beautiful circumstance on that car. And when he saw my car, the Corvette Z06, he's like, dude, can I sit in it? And being a responsible car guy that I am, you always got to inspire the next generation. Tossed him the keys, told him to jump in, fire that thing up, rev it up a little bit. He didn't want to rev it up because he was respectful, but he jumped in, fired it up, thought it was cool. And it was a cool moment there. And one of the biggest things that I have to say that the car community, not so much, but more the manufacturers did, is just completely failed this generation of car guys. I mean, they're building these ridiculously expensive, heavy, just kind of hideous looking cars with fake vents everywhere. I mean, let's talk about the modern Civic Type R. This thing is not the Type R that we were lusting after when we were kids. Like, the Type R was the Integra Type R. I believe there was 500 of those units made in the United, or not made, but shipped to the United States at that time. It was extremely sought after. It was like one of the cars to have. Absolutely amazing piece of machinery. It was lightweight, revved high, modest in every other department aside from just doing the job. It was a tool for a job, which was going fast on a budget and being cool. Whereas the modern Civic Type R, your lane detection system sets off my radar detector. Like, I have to speed less if you're driving around in a Type R. I have to, like, actually look out for cops because you're driving your Type R Honda. So, yeah, the manufacturers have betrayed us. And I mean, and largely the newer generation, really. And you compare an EG Civic, which is what Mason, the parts store kid, was building out, compared to a modern Type R. An EG hatch, like DX edition, was like 2,100 pounds stock. Mason says he has stripped out to 1,800 pounds. Now, it maybe made 100 horsepower in stock. So we're talking about power to weight ratio of 21-1. So not a great power to weight ratio, but the modern Type R, that thing's weighing in at a hefty 3,200 pounds for a power to weight ratio of 10.1-1. So it's got some power with 315 horses, but the thing's a porker. And this is power at the wheels too. There's always drivetrain losses. Figure you're probably going to lose 30 of those horsepower. So that power weight ratio is probably going to be closer to 11.5-1 by the time you're said and done. Now, take this Civic that Mason says he has stripped down 1,800 pounds and puts down 240 horsepower at the wheels. That is a 7.5 power to weight ratio, pounds to horsepower. That's freaking scorchingly fast. Obviously, there's a lot to be said for horsepower. Weight can't get you through everything, but having lightweight is going to be immensely handy. Now, let's compare this to a Hellcat, right? A Hellcat advertised to be 4,500, 4,600 pounds, but to have like 710 plus horsepower, clocks in at like 6.5 pounds per horsepower Now, factor in drivetrain losses, that's probably 7 pounds per horsepower. So think about that. 7 pounds per horsepower in a Hellcat, 7.5 pounds per horsepower in a Civic. And it costs like 10% of the cost. I mean, Hellcats are going for like, you get a fully equipped wide body, it's like a $90,000 car. Whereas you can build this Civic for probably like significantly less than $9,000. Now let's really have some fun. Let's stack it up against my Corvette. My Corvette, I estimate, is about a 9.2 pounds per horsepower ratio, and I come to that conclusion because I have about an extra 400 pounds of audio, and it makes 367 horsepower to the wheels. So the power to weight ratio on this EG Civic at 1,800 pounds trounces my C5 Z06 with, you know, light mods. My car's not super built, and we're obviously at altitude, but that's impressive. And that's one of the things about the Honda platform is I'm not a Honda guy, I never have been, but the cars and the people who are working on them just keep going, man. Like, these Hondas are living on to find new generations of people who are loving them. Like the guy who had the red Integra, his car probably didn't really see a Honda kit at any point in time. And he's going to be the first one that got his hands on it, just based on how clean the car was. No dents. It had sun wear on the paint that you would expect with age, but otherwise really, really clean. He's probably the first Honda kid, but some of these have been recycled. Like, some moron my age was like driving that thing back in the 90s, and that thing's still going on. So there's a lot to be said for the platform, a lot to be said for the people that drive them. And they're resilient as far as like, people have been breaking their balls as long as there have been Honda balls to break. This has just been one of the things, we're calling these things rice burners, slow lawnmowers, fart cars, and I was definitely one of those people, like when they were contemporary, when the Civics were newer and stuff like that, I was definitely one of the people bashing on them back in those days, because I was a V8 kid and I haven't even come to discover my love for Japanese cars because I didn't even own a car at that point. So I was actually just a hater. Let's be clear about that. But there's not a platform that I've ever been super into. The only Honda I ever owned was an Odyssey, but I respect the people that build them more and more as time has gone on. And if you don't have love for the S2000 revving to 9,000 RPM, like, you're just not even a car guy. Sorry to hear about your luck. But yeah, again, never been a Honda guy, but they're out there doing the damn thing, and I gotta respect them for it, you know? End of the day, I see these kids doing more to keep the car community alive, preserving these vehicles that are older than them, than just about anybody, myself included. And I'm over here, you know, spending every penny that I got out there on my C5 Corvette. So Honda kids out there with your stupid haircuts, I respect the heck out of you, man. You guys are freaking rocking it and doing the job. I will say to every single one of you guys, right to your face, brothers and sisters, horsepower.
Damn, bro, that was racist.